later become the first Korean American ethnic studies course in the United States. So I'm giving the sharing on helping students to know their stories, tell their stories, listen to each other's stories with empathy and respect, and do something good with these stories, right? Know, tell, listen, do.
Zoom
And,
25.
it resonated with people, right? And then I had somebody come up to me and ask, would you ever consider running for school board? And I thought in my mind, I never thought about that. But then I thought about, you know what? Maybe I'll just put my hat in the ring and see what happens. I had no experience, I hadn't thought about it really. But I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just put my hat in the ring and see what happens, because I do believe representation matters. And I was thinking about representation actually, because I've been talking about the causes of the American Revolution in U.S. history, right? You know, one of the major causes for the American Revolution? Taxation without representation. This idea of representation is a very American thing, it's a very beautiful thing, but oftentimes so many people are not represented, including Korean Americans and Asian Americans. So that's why I thank you for saying this, because just being in that space, representing, when they see another person that looks Asian, I think when somebody looks at me and they hadn't heard me speak, let's say, they might think China, right? But the thing is, I'm not Chinese, I'm a second generation Korean American. My children are third generation Korean American, and also even if I was Chinese, I hope Chinese people are treated well in the United States. But because they don't know anything about Korean American studies or Asian American studies, what's left are stereotypes and biases, which then lead to, I think, could lead to hate, or at least bystanders standing by and allowing hate to happen. But when we see a trustee Rosa or trustee Jasmine representing as a Korean American, now when they think Korean American, who are they thinking? They're thinking trustee Rosa, trustee Jasmine, a great American serving our country. So that's why you just being in that space, and me also stepping up, even though it wasn't easy, to be in those spaces is a great act of love, a great act of wisdom, and great for the United States of America as well. My next question is, how does drawing from the strengths of your Korean American identity shape the way you govern and impact policy? And it's kind of a two-part question. How can Korean American trustees balance their cultural heritage with the broader responsibilities of serving diverse communities?
I think I've calmed down a little less nervous, so hopefully I can speak a little bit more slowly and try. I think a couple of the examples that came up for me was growing up as a child of immigrant parents who don't speak English, and so the importance of equitable communication was really important for me coming in as a school board member, of are people getting the information that they need to make the right decisions for their child's education, for their families. And so that was something that I tried to probe deeply into. And I think one of the things that I encountered is that when you are joining an organization that is accustomed to a lot of trust and not being questioned, that those questions are just wanting to know more can be perceived as slightly hostile, and so had to build up that trust there. But this led to a reevaluation as my prioritization of equitable communication became more understood, and the intent behind it was better understood by the district. This led to improved communications, hiring a chief communications officer, and really revitalizing that part of our cabinet and our district management, and making sure that it continued to be a priority for the district and that we had that accountability. I think another example that came up for me was when I was growing up, my older brother had experience of being bullied in school, and one of the things that I remember from my mom's conversations about this was that that Korean kids, or kids whose parents have not gone through the American education system and are not familiar with it, are at a disadvantage because they don't know how to advocate for their child if there is some sort of escalation of conflict between their child and another student whose parents may be more familiar with how to communicate. And so I think that has also led to a level of scrutiny when it comes to school discipline to make sure that we are being fair in the decisions that are made, and that no step of the process has been skipped over. And I think that trying to balance my identity with the needs of the communities, like, yeah, continuously reminding myself that I was also elected at large, so it's not even by a particular district in my school district, but that all of these people are trusting me, and so that I have a responsibility to draw from my lived experiences or those that I know, but I also have a responsibility to go out there and listen to other people who I may not be encountering or living alongside on a day-to-day basis, to have a better understanding of what their unique concerns and needs are, and also the unique ways that they are already overcoming the challenges or barriers that have that are placed before them, and being able to scale that if we can, if there are other concerns that we have overlooked, making sure those are addressed.
First, I would like to share my highlight of the year as a school board member. We go to the graduation ceremony, and then we make a speech, and then actually we give diploma to its students. So, and when I hear the Korean name, like last name Kim, like me, or Park, or Lee. I know there's a Chinese the last name Lee, but I always say, "Oh, 축하해." That means congratulations in Korean, and then the students are, "Oh, I'm not shocked. Did I hear Korean in my graduation ceremony?" So that was actually that smile, that kind of surprising face. It's really highlighting. It's really made me happy, feel happy. Okay, I'm a school board member, and then actually as a Korean American mom, like your mom, I can be the leader of your school community, right? So that was really, we need more Korean American trustees. And when I was working at the Korean language school, the Korean Heritage School, I started the teacher seminar on Korean history and culture, and I invited local educators, and then we, actually served Korean food, and we invited Korean American scholars, and we actually share a lot of resources on Korean history and culture, and help teachers teach Korean history and culture in their classroom. So I continue to do that. As a board member now, I'm not directly involved as a coordinator, but I'm supporting that. I share the information of the seminar to our teachers in the district and our neighborhood, the district teachers, and help that kind of event to be continuously offered to our local educators. And now my focus is not just Korean American history and culture. Now it's actually broadened to Asian American history and culture. Because as we all know, ethnic studies also, the Asian American studies is part of the core the topics, right? And Korean American history is part of Asian American history. And as Asian American, I also see there are many similarities, and as we also the data about the Asian American hate, right? So we are all on the same side, the Asian American, right? So we actually need to support each other. We understand, the Asian American group, and we actually need to collaborate and support each other. So that was kind of the ideas came to me as a school board member. As you all know, school board members not directly working at the district or schools, but throughout the board meetings, we are actually bringing the voices of the community, and we are bridging between the school leaders and community. So I'm, trying to bring that voices, the Asian American community, and also the immigrant the community, because I know how hard to live as an English learner, because for many immigrant families, language is a barrier for them. So I know that because when I first settled in the state, it was hard to call the government agency because I was not fluent in English. So I know that struggle of immigrant families. So I understand their perspective. So now, as a school board member, I actually visit the Spanish-speaking parents at the meetings. And I understand their perspectives. I want to learn more about their perspectives. So California, we have diverse community. So as an immigrant, as a Korean American, we talk about the being ally, right? And that we need to collaborate with other community members. So I understand the perspective as Korean American immigrant parent and the school board members. So I'm continue to try bring their voices.
I think one thing that you do, Trustee Rosa, that's really powerful is you're able to identify with others. Like, because you have your own story of resilience, you're so culturally empathetic to Korean Americans and all Americans. And that allows you to advocate for many different kinds of people and to use your voice to support it. I think sometimes when people think about school board members, they think like, oh, we're just going to complain about this A, B, and C, right? But a powerful way that school board members, I think, make a difference is by actually praising. Because you raise what you praise. So the things that you value, you highlight, you talk about, and you elevate. And that amplifies the power of whatever that is. You raise what you praise. Now, as it comes to Korean American studies, some people have asked, like, well, why Korean American studies? Isn't that kind of narrow? America is very diverse, and we don't have that many Korean Americans, only 2 million, let's say, they'll say, right? Well, I would say this then. I think the Korean American story is a great American story for Korean Americans and all Americans. I'm not Hispanic Latino, for example, but when I hear Sylvia Mendez's story and the Mendez versus Westminster case in 1948, which helped then pave the way for the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education, which desegregated schools. Yes, that's a story that Hispanic Latinos can be very proud of. But as a Korean American, I can also be proud of that work as well because that's my legacy, that's my children's legacy as well. So I celebrate that story. Or I'm not African American, but when I know Martin Luther King Jr.'s story and how we paved the way for the civil rights in 1964, the Civil Rights Act, I wonder if the 1965 Immigration Act, which paved the way for many Asian Americans to come to the United States, would have passed had it not been for the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So then I have like this great gratitude then for the African American community. But if I were to ask somebody, could you name one Korean American that made a difference in the United States, or one Asian American that made a difference in the United States, maybe they would have a difficult time knowing. Now in this place, we know many. So for example, I'm very thankful for Dr. Chang, who shared, for example, about Tosan An Chang-ho. What a powerful Korean American story that paved the way not only for Korean Americans, but maybe even democracy in Korea. And then now back to the United States of America again, as we think about like our allyship with other nations as well. Well, what an amazing, amazing story. What about Dr. Sammy Lee? What about Colonel Young-ho Kim? These are Korean American stories, but they're great American stories to inspire every American as well. But oftentimes I think people can enter these spaces and not even name one Korean American that made a difference. So that's why I think sharing even Korean American stories, so powerful, are individual stories of resilience as well as people who have been so resilient across history as well. So we know that you've both experienced many successes like, wow, I love hearing your story of how you just put your hat in the ring and got into that role, but you must have faced some challenges too. What challenges did you face as a Korean American trustee, and how did you overcome them?
Can you hear me well? The mic?
No.
It's not working, I think.
You go use this.
Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Yeah. Okay, so I can tell. So I was raised being modest. So you need to listen, and actually you need to be modest. You should not brag about, as a board member, as a newly elected board member 6 years ago, it was hard for me to talk a lot about my ideas at the board meeting because I was educated to listen more, not speak more. But board members' work is actually you need to speak on behalf of the community members. So I can tell it was hard because I was always taught to be modest, right? So that kind of value was kind of the challenge. I need to overcome that kind of attitude as a board member. So, and I wanted to learn from others. And as I mentioned, I thought, Korean American, I was more connected easily with Asian American community members. So I joined the Asian American Parents Association, and I joined the Asian Pacific Islander School Board Members Association because I wanted to work together and I wanted to learn from others. And we made some programs together like the awards, recognized ethnic studies work, and actually I advocated including Korean American lesson plans in the ethnic studies model curriculum. That was why I was better connected with Dr. Chang and many educators and scholars in SoCal. So anyway, that kind of collaboration really helped me overcome that kind of the value I had. Actually, we need to work together. So we need to actually empower our community all together. So it was very helpful for me actually working together. So I think that is really important part as the Korean American because I saw many Korean Americans just working in the church community or just working with the other Korean American. But whenever I had a chance for kind of the students, the meeting or seminar or parents meeting, I always share. Actually, you need to be engaged in the broader community, not just in the Korean community. So work with diverse community members. So that's what I'm always continue to put emphasis on. So overcome. You can be a great Korean American with working with other community members.
I'm going to reinterpret this question a little bit of what challenges I face as a Korean American trustee who is also a young professional, who is also working full-time, who is also raising a toddler, who is in a sandwich generation of also taking care of aging parents, who is not a homeowner and definitely experiencing the sacrifice that comes with continuing to rent in an area that is slightly unaffordable for our single income household. So I think that there are a lot of pieces to that are challenges, but like I shared in the first question, my answer to the first question is also privilege of being able to relate to folks who may not normally see themselves in a position of authority or leadership or being at the decision-making table. And so I think that all of those things, the way that I overcome it is by recognizing that story is not something that I need to keep to myself, but I need to tell other people that there is someone like me who is serving, and these are the challenges that I face of when you run for office. You have to have an address, like a permanent address, and you have to live in a particular, if you've been redistricted, like in a particular trustee area, and if you don't own a home, like that means that you're making conscious decisions, but when you decide to serve, or the time that it takes to serve as a school board member, our district, I think you get a stipend of, I don't know, it's like $300-something a month, but it's definitely not going to be paying your bills by any sense, and that can pose a barrier to serving for a lot of folks. And so like just looking at the system, being like, who is being barred from serving just because of the different circumstances that they are dealing with, and also the flip side of that for me is just the weight of it, of when I am part of that decision-making table, that I can't just go along with what everyone else is saying. I can't be a people pleaser. I can't be afraid to rock the boat, but because I am there on behalf of all those other people who can't be there.
Wow, solidarity, also the challenges of multiple roles. Wow, amazing. But overcoming them through your service and leadership. And then for myself, I thought one of my challenges was, once again, I had mentioned how I never had a teacher that looked like me growing up. So then when I entered this role, it's not like I had some mentors or a lot of people who had this experience, who had my similar experience, kind of giving me advice on what to do. So I was just kind of going in blind a little bit, right? And then I'm entering spaces, just like I never had any teachers that looked like me in my district, even though it's a very diverse district. There are a few leaders in that district who look like me as well. And so even though they're really talented, gifted, skilled, excellent, sometimes there's a lack of, I feel, cultural empathy, because I feel like I'm having to explain things, but I'm the only one that's maybe having that kind of perspective. And I find that kind of a little bit weighing sometimes. But it's kind of a burden, but at the same time I know it's a responsibility at the same time. And so I think at first I felt like change had to happen more quickly because I'm in this space. But I realized that, you know what, catching educators, catching others doing the right thing, you raise what you praise, asking good questions, like how could we be more culturally empathetic? What could it look like to have plurilingual programs? What could representation look like in these spaces? Just asking those questions. I think if this is the right thing, if this is a part of what it means to be America, we the people, if we value representation, if we believe that we're in a country that in order to form a more perfect union, that it's good, but how can we make it better, and we've got to constantly strive towards that, then I'm doing my part, and there's going to come others who come alongside with solidarity, as you mentioned, and with the barriers that I also feel with my time constraints. I'm just going to give my 5 loaves and 2 fish, and I believe something good is going to happen from that. And I could feel good about that, just knowing that I gave my 5 loaves and 2 fish. And definitely elevating my voice in the right spaces. I was listening to Minju Park's presentation a little bit earlier in this conference, and how she had allowed the voice to be amplified of the community through podcasts and things like that. I think that's a powerful way to overcome the challenges. And I'm not just talking about my voice here, because sometimes when it's from a school board member, sometimes that's actually less power in some ways, right? But when it's coming from a student, many students, parents, I wish they would share what they cared about and shared it in a thoughtful, civil, loving, and wise way. And when they do that, I think powerful change can come. I'm just one voice representing some, but what if many students shared their thoughts of what they wanted education to look like, or parents in a thoughtful and civil way? Perhaps my being there can give them some courage to also speak up as well. Our next question is, what is the current status of ethnic studies implementation in your school district? And Carol, by the way, if I'm going over time, just let me know. Just give me a track. But what is the current status of ethnic studies implementation in your school district? What do you envision for the future of ethnic studies in your district, particularly in terms of incorporating Korean American perspectives?
So at Torrance Unified School District, earlier this year, we approved our 9th grade ethnic studies and 10th grade ethnic literature courses, and currently the committee is developing additional ethnic studies electives as 11th and 12th grade options. And this is for the September 2026. That's the first group of students who's going to be required to take one of the ethnic studies options. So that's the current status. We also have dual enrollment. So students at one of our high schools can take courses at the local community college as well. And so I believe there are options being explored there also. I believe in the winter of 2025 is when the board will approve additional 11th and 12th grade ethnic studies electives. So that's the current status. For my vision for the future of ethnic studies, I really hope that students are, for those electives, that they are able to take a deeper dive into maybe their own cultural heritage or the cultural heritage of their fellow peers or other students that they're interested in, and really take those stories as inspiration to create change in their own ways of. We have a student board member. We had a student board member meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we're talking about what are the biggest challenges that teens today are facing, and what sort of project, what sort of deliverable can we take from identifying what that problem is. And it was really interesting that what came out of it is that the student board members really wanted to highlight stories of student heroes, students who are in the community already, who are really doing amazing work, serving others with their artistic talents, all of these different gifts that they have, and highlighting that to serve as inspiration for other students, and also just get them excited about being a student and being in school. And I think that that's something that I hope in its own way with the ethnic studies program, is that as they learn about folks who have creative history, if we're in Korean American or Cambodian American, whatever it may be, that it would inspire them to also be those history makers today.
Great to hear that. Yeah, there's many student voices. So yeah, my school district is high school district. So we started ethnic studies course offering 2 years ago. So this is the second year as kind of elective, but it's still pilot program. But as you all know, the following year we actually required to offer the ethnic studies course to every student. For us, we offer this pilot program as 9th grade, the course, and we actually, planning to offer this ethnic studies requirement for 9th grade, because that way they learn about this ethnic studies, the contents in the first year. And then they can actually expand and explore more in their social studies and the English courses. So our district really work hard to diversify all the reading materials. And our district actually, the 60% of the whole, about 95,000 students are all Asian API students, and 18% Latino other students. So we, in the Silicon Valley, we have really diverse the student the population. So as you know, the ethnic studies course is interdisciplinary and very project-based the curriculum. So I don't think we actually include the Korean American studies in the curriculum, but actually the students can bring their culture, the immigrant history in the discussion, in their project. Because of that format, I really think that I can be heard about their lesson plans and their work. That kind of work is really important, and also the Korean language school, the heritage schools. So they actually need to share the resources with students. That way, those students can bring the resources to the classroom discussion. And when they have a chance to present, actually they can present about their own culture, their own immigrant stories. So they actually need to have that kind of knowledge and resources before they come to ethnic studies classroom. So that's why I really think our language school and other kind of the community schools or program is important. It's kind of the community work. So ethnic studies, learning about minority community history. So we all as a community, we need to share the resources. So I really value, we visited the Young Kim, the office, the research center. So they do have all the resources, virtual kind of the resources. That kind of resources needs to be shared with teachers and students. So that way, actually, the students in the ethnic studies the classroom, they can learn from other students. So that is the core thing for ethnic studies course, I think. So my vision is not just Korean American studies. I think our students need to learn about other, the community members. From other friends, right? So I think our next generation has really important benefit to learn from other friends, right, in the ethnic studies course. So we actually need to know what kind of suffering and challenges that other community members went through. That kind of knowledge can make our students be good leaders in the diverse community. So I'm excited about this kind of ethnic studies course, the graduation requirement. So I think our work it's just started. So as a community, we really need to work hard. So I want to actually be one of, the supporter, and then want to continue to share resources about Korean American history.
Thank you. I love how both of you want to draw out the assets from the students, the assets from the community, because the stories are there, but sometimes either the student doesn't know it, or they haven't had the space to tell that story. And telling that story is so important. I'm going to kind of pivot away from my Irvine Unified School District board role. We're in place to comply with the law, to Anaheim Unified High School District in my role as educator there, who has launched many ethnic studies opportunities, including the first Korean American ethnic studies course. And I kind of want to share the 4 words again: know, tell, listen, do. So when in our district, as educators, we're encouraged to know our students' names, needs, their stories, and their assets. But what if the student doesn't know their own story? Like if you were to ask a student, tell me what your name is. Tell me your parents' story. What are the similarities and differences between your generations? I'm coming across many Korean Americans. They are growing up in loving families. Their parents love them so much, but they've never had these conversations. And there's a lot of reasons why these conversations are happening. It could be a language barrier. It could be a cultural barrier between, how parents are and how children are. It could be the triple trauma, the trauma of being a colonized nation, the Korean War, the migration trauma. So sometimes it's all intermingled together. So how do you talk about that kind of stuff, right? But I think what's happened is it's kind of left kind of like trauma that has not been processed well. For many adults, and then the children then don't have the opportunity to tap into these amazing stories of resilience. Like if they could tap into the stories of what their parents, what their grandparents overcame, that we are survivors, wow, they would be so strong. But unfortunately, they oftentimes don't know their own stories, and they definitely haven't told their stories. I like to think that in order for the tree to grow tall, you have to know your roots. And I think about the sequoia tree, one of the largest trees in the world. If you see a sequoia tree, it is massive. It is growing very tall, and it's very interesting, their roots. Their roots go down, but then they go out really wide. They rarely grow by themselves, and they grow in groves. So because our Korean American stories are intersecting and connecting with Latino Hispanic stories, African American stories, Native American stories, all American stories, it's interconnected. So when you're learning Korean American stories, you're learning many different stories at the same time. So how do we get a course like this launched? Well, I was very fortunate, you talked about the curriculum, to be a part of the Korean American KSEF website, Foundation for Education and Culture, where they looked at the model ethnic studies curriculum, the 7 lessons, and then we made it very easy for teachers to teach. So I was very fortunate to be a part of that. So you need educators, first of all. Second, you need leadership. There's a reason why there's not that many Korean Americans actually in the Anaheim Union High School District. But yet, this is where we launched the Korean American Ethnic Studies course. How are we able to do that? Well, I had a lot of support. When I had the idea, there were many, many people ready to support me. And I'm talking about school leadership. Because I can imagine if I was a teacher in a different place and the school leadership was not in favor of that, how difficult, how challenging that would be, right? And then third, the Korean American community. The Korean American parents, the Consulate General, who also helped, the Republic of Korea, all helping to make this course happen as well. I didn't feel like I was completely alone in that. Although the first year, I did feel a little alone. So we got this course created. I offered the course, and the students didn't sign up. So we had to actually close that course for the first year because there weren't enough students. Because why? Maybe they didn't hear, maybe they're thinking about AP classes, they're thinking about college classes, that's their high priority, GPA. So I think we gotta, as Korean Americans, also think, what is like important for us, you know? We definitely have been so blessed as a nation, so culturally blessed. How can we be culturally honoring? Well, I think courses like this, ethnic studies, and ethnic studies done with love and wisdom can help pave the way to be culturally honoring. And when I say ethnic studies with love and wisdom, I hope if a student were to leave my class, they wouldn't have more fear and anger for our country. We can look at the pain, we can process the pain because there are some painful moments, but we need to leave with love and wisdom. That's why it's know, tell, listen, and do something good with your story. So the final question for this panel is, what advice would you give to there's many young Korean Americans, I see some young students as well, Korean Americans, I'm so glad they're going to Saturday, right? That says a lot about you, like you're very important, and then also some, even everyone I think is young in this room, right? We're all young as well. So this advice could go to ourselves as well, right? So what advice would you give to young Korean Americans who are interested in pursuing leadership roles in education, or leadership in general, school board members perhaps? What is your advice?
Well, my answer is not just for young Korean American, also to old Korean American too, because anyone can be a school board member. And before I, start my, the comments, actually, Jeff is a superstar in education, the sector, because he created Korean American Studies curriculum. So for Asian American School Board Members Association, that was so amazing to see. One of Asian American, the educator developed Korean American Studies curriculum. So we talk a lot about that curriculum kind of as a model for other, the Asian Americans lesson plan, or, the Indian American, the Latino American, curriculum, Native American, African American curriculum. So I really appreciate all your work, and also as a school board member. So I think that people need to know what school board members do first. School board members is the decision-making authority. So 5 board members or 7 board members, actually they vote for all the agenda item, the board meeting agenda item. It really varies. The agenda item include financial decision like approving budget, and also hiring superintendent or approving new curriculum. And what else? There's so many, like construction, all the contract too. So it's all different components. You actually learn what the public school district is doing with all the reports. So you actually vote for each agenda item on behalf of the community members, because all the public school education run by tax money, right? So you have a lot of actually stress because you can receive a lot of email from community members that you need to vote for this, you need to vote for or if there's some kind of complaint, they just target the school board members, call school board members or email them. But if you don't hear anything, it's really, okay, so we are doing a very, very good job, right? So anyway, so this is really important the group in this the educational system. Because, you actually can contact school board members when you have concern, right? And we are not employee of the district, but you actually bring the community voices in the decision making. So if you want to be a leader, and if you want to make your voices heard, actually school board member is the best position, because you are the boss of superintendent, right? So superintendent needs to listen to school board members' ideas. Otherwise, the school board members can discuss together and fire the superintendent, right? So it's really important role, but we are behind the scene, right? Not many, the students or parents know what school board members do, but we actually stand all the decision kind of contract or agreement happening in the schools and district. So I really think our parents or scholars or the community members just go to your the school district's board meeting and then see how your school decision is made at board members. So every board meeting has public hearing, so 2 minute or 3 minute the space for any community members to come and share their ideas or concern or complaint. So that was at the beginning I mentioned about the book named Sofa from the Bamboo Grove. So I didn't share the outcome of that the kind of the effort. So I share and the Korean American parents and Korean school teachers and principal went to school board meeting and then share this is very one side the kind of perspective in the book. So it's not fair for Korean American students in that classroom. And after the board meeting, the board members actually discuss and decide to make a protocol when teachers use that textbook. And I was contacted as an advisor for protocol. So I review all the protocol. Actually, when you use this book in the classroom, you need to actually introduce another book, which is actually the same age. The goal is the main character of that book and share what happened in Korea during the Japanese occupation period, like giving students a balanced kind of view, right? That was the decision made at school board meeting. And when we went to the many Korean American parents in SoCal or NoCal, we knew about this book and went to the California Board Education the meeting. And after we talk about that concern, and after that, the publisher actually removed that book from the recommended reading list in California. So that was a big win because we all collaborate together and we made our voices heard. So that's the work happening at board meetings. And any parents, any student can make your voices heard at board meetings, and that was the place for decision making happening. So I really want any of you can be board member because I didn't grow up here. I didn't go to school here. English is not my first language, but I'm doing it. So anyone here, any of you went to schools here, right? And then your English will be better than my English. So you can be a school board member. So I really encourage you to think about, okay, I can be the leader of the neighborhood school, right?
So inspiring. I love listening to both of you. I think for me, one piece of advice is that there is never going to be an ideal or perfect time or circumstance situation for you to put yourself out there to serve in a position of leadership. I'm someone who does a lot of pros and cons lists before I make a decision, or if I'm buying something, I'll make a sheet comparing everything. And so if you were to make your pros and cons lists, or why yes or why no, I think something you may find is your list of reasons why not to may actually be the reason you should. And so I think that if there is an opportunity that comes your way and you're doing that calculation, that you still just put yourself out there, because you never know what's going to happen or how much you can transform an organization, a community, because you say yes. I think another piece of advice is that you can do it your own way. I don't know if you watched the Korean drama Sky Castle. I really like that drama, but
I did.
but in it there is this one kid who gets into the most prestigious program at the most prestigious school, university, and then all of these moms are trying to get that formula for how they can have their kids get into that program as well. And I think for myself, I've experienced this firsthand too, because I went to Harvard for undergrad, and then it was still to this day, people are asking me, what exactly should I do to go to Harvard? I'm I don't know. But I think that there is a service that you can provide to others, the people, the future generations, the people coming behind you to forge new paths. If everyone just keeps going down that well-trodden path, then what about all of the other ways that you can get to that destination or to your own destination? You have to be that example. And so maybe that means not fundraising and or maybe that means, I don't know. Yeah, it's so many different, serving on the PTA. I don't know, but whatever that is in your particular circumstance. And the last is, don't be afraid to rock the boat. I think that being comfortable with being a disruptive force is really necessary and something that our organizations need. That it's not extreme to the level where you're throwing everything off, but some level of disruption is necessary for continuous growth and accountability of any sort of organization. And there's a Korean saying, I might say it wrong, it's like, 고인물이 속는다? Is that right? Yeah.
What is the translation here?
It's like if you leave it, then if the water, if you don't have it flow out, then it becomes stagnant and rotten. And so so there may be a board that everyone's been serving for decades, and maybe they're in need of someone to challenge and to go in and refresh the water a little bit.
Absolutely refreshing the water. I will say this, I know in this space we do have many leaders who said yes and stepped in very difficult spaces, made such a great difference for our country. But I know that there are some folks here who maybe you don't feel like you're a leader. If you're a student, can you raise your hand? If you're a student or a Korean American ambassador, you're one of the Korean American ambassadors. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here because you don't need a title to be a leader. So in all these different spaces, you know your story. You tell your story, you listen to other people's story, and most importantly, you do something good with your story. And when the opportunity arises, you might think in your mind, not me. No, I'm not the right person for this. Just like Rosa, Jasmine, we all thought maybe at first, not me, right? But what is your reason for responding that way? Are you responding that way because of fear? Or are you responding that way because of love? And if it's not out of love, then we need to rethink our responses. And if an opportunity comes to us, we need to ask ourselves, how can I respond with love and wisdom? And just lean into that, even if it's a step of faith. And you could do some great things like these inspirational ladies here. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you. We will have our next panel that I believe 15-minute break. No, 10-minute break.